You're listening to the 49 Carats Podcast, a 49ers Goldmine production with Stephanie Sanchez.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the 49 Carats Podcast. I'm your host, Steph. It is Friday, November 22nd. The bad gets worse for the 49ers. We just got word a little bit ago that Brock Purdy will not be playing, as won't Nick Bosa in Week 12 against the Packers in Green Bay. So joining me to talk about these injuries right at the top here is Dezi. Dezi, I'm not going to ask you how you're doing. I think we know. How you holding up?
I'm
yeah.
That's all I have to say about that.
Yep.
My friend, is looking bleak.
It's looking very bleak. So Purdy's out, Nick Bosa out, Mooney Ward out, Tatum Bethune, Kevin Givens, Jacob Cowing, Trent Williams is questionable. He's a game time decision. Feliciano is also questionable for this game. But let's talk about Brock Purdy, because this has been a weird one to track this week. I mean, the practice reports, it seemed like there was some optimism and then not so much. They did an MRI on his shoulder and apparently his elbow as well. John Lynch was on KNBR this morning and it said like they feel good about the MRI results, but ultimately didn't practice today and not playing this week. And not just that, Dezi, but it seems like next week his status is up in the air too.
Oh, yeah, it's looking rough, man. I mean, I think there was some speculation. There's some whispers that you heard even a couple of games ago prior to our bye week where people were like, oh, his grip, like it looked like the balls that he was throwing, there was just not the tight windows that we're used to seeing. And, things where like the ball almost fell out of his hand. And so I kind of had some concerns, but didn't want to, make any fuss over it until it was something that became more evident. But yes, the MRIs have been done. The reports that I saw showed that they were unremarkable, which is good. Maybe they saw some inflammatory changes, but it doesn't sound like, anything that should keep him out long term. But I think the question is at this point is, what does the rest of the season look like and how much do you force people back? I think that's the bigger question.
Yeah, and with Trent Williams being a game time decision, I think that is important because why would you put him out there in a game that now looks all but sure to be a loss? Based on how Trent looked last week, do you feel like he's okay on that ankle, or he'd be best served to rest it?
It's a little suspect, right? I mean, I listened to your podcast from Wednesday, and you had some great stats showing the offensive line and what their numbers look like, and it doesn't look great. And for our best player to be putting up the numbers that they are, being Dominic Puni, who's our rookie player, I mean, Trent did not look great compared to the other people on the O-line. And that was over the last 6 weeks, I think those stats were, right?
Yes. Yeah, the last 6 weeks for this offensive line has been shaky at best, especially when it comes to the run blocking. I saw a lot of people say this was one of the worst run blocking performances from this offensive line they've maybe seen in years. So that could be partially attributed to Trent Williams not being 100%. So it'll be interesting to see what his designation will be. We'll find that out, of course, an hour or so before Sunday's game. But yeah, I mean, this is less than ideal for the 49ers. And I'll just ask you this, Dezi, how much of this injury, and this is the last question, I know you got to head out. How much of this Brock Purdy shoulder soreness or whatever he's dealing with could be impacted by the cold, because they're playing in Green Bay this week. Next week's going to be in Buffalo. That one's going to be freezing. So how much might that play a role?
First of all, I love how you pointed out that it's going to be freezing in Buffalo, because that's exactly where I'm going to be. Possibly 1 week from now. I am kind of low-key freaked out about it. But, yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep your muscles warm when the weather is super cold. And when you don't have warmed up muscles, that's when you have an increased risk for injury. So if this isn't super concerning, I say sit him out, let him get through the cold weather and, a couple of games. I mean, again, the question is this super new, or is this something that we've been seeing kind of getting worse throughout the weeks? So, we'll have to see if there's any more information that comes through regarding that. But at this point, we know he's not going to be in this game. And, the question is, for how long?
Yeah. So we'll know more, I'm sure, after this week. But Dezi, thank you so much for your insight on this, and looking forward to hearing from you next week as well. Or actually, we'll talk about it, because
I have a
Thanksgiving, and it's like you'll be traveling. But
but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If Trent doesn't play, do you see Dominic Puni switching over to the left side?
No, I don't think so. I think they'll plug in Jalen Moore. That's what they've done earlier in the season as well, when Trent missed some time. So, yeah, I think that's what they'll do, and that's fine with me. I mean, Puni has been so great at right guard that you don't mess something up that's good, right? Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So Puni there is okay with me. But Feliciano, who knows? Maybe they could still move some guys around. But all right, Dezi, I know you got to get to your movie. She's watching Wicked today, so go ahead and enjoy that. She's got her witch's hat and everything. I love the enthusiasm, but thanks, Dezi, for joining right before the movie. All right, enjoy.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
All right, we're going to take a look at – here, let's do this. We take a look at the Packers injury report. We already talked about the 49ers, and their injury report, at least for the players that are out, is quite extensive. So something to keep an eye on, of course. As far as the Packers, they got a couple of notable out players as well. Cornerback Jair Alexander, who has missed some time this year as well. He tried to gut it out last week. I think that didn't go too well for him. He exited that game early. He's going to be out in week 12 for the Packers. Edgerrin Cooper, their linebacker, also going to be out. So both of those injuries to their defense, to me, seem pretty important. But yeah, as Corey points out, not nearly as bad as the 49ers. In fact, I think I'd feel okay about the Packers injury report if, like, Purdy played, for example. Like, I'd feel better about Purdy being able to take advantage of, two key defensive players on their side being out. But now it's kind of a wash. Like, I don't even think it matters that Alexander and Cooper are going to be out for the Packers. I don't feel very good about this right now. And I got to be honest with you, this was a pretty tough preview slide to put together, because, like, I did have some idea of, where this can go and what could be favorable and whatnot. But, like, after we found out that Purdy wasn't going to play, I was like, what's even the point? So, but anyway, we're going to gut it out. All right. We're going to go through this, as always, go through some favorable matchups. Appreciate all of you that are also, in here with some enthusiasm, even if it's of the negative sort, in here to catch this stream. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet. Appreciate you guys. All right, for the not so favorable, I'm just going to start off with Keyshawn Nixon, and this is of the special teams variety, specifically with Keyshawn Nixon. He's also one of their starting corners in light of Alexander being out. But Nixon as a return man, I think, is something I would be cautious of in this game. The fact that special teams has been less than stellar for the 49ers. I've spent several weeks on these preview shows pointing that out. And so this could be one of those games, cold weather, where special teams rear its ugly head again, right? So just something to look out for in this one. He's ranked kind of like middle of the pack as far as his average in kick returns. So he averages 27.3 yards per kick return. His long of the season has been 37 yards. But as we've seen with this 49ers team, I mean, hey, they'll give up a lot more than that if they're not careful. So just something to keep an eye on in this game that, makes me a little bit cautious about this one. On punt returns, it hasn't been quite as bad for Nixon. I mean, 12 average yards per punt return, and his long for punt returns has been 39 yards. So there's that. Something to keep an eye on. Let's take a look at the Packers offense, right? So they got Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs. I love their receivers. Like, just speaking objectively, I do love their young core. Jaden Reed is dangerous, and Christian Watson is kind of caught fire, for them the last couple of games. So his role is growing. Tucker Kraft, their tight end, is pretty good. Jordan Love, he's been up and down this season, right? Like, I think Packers fans would admittedly say, he's prone to some mistakes as well, and those mistakes come in the form of interceptions. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Josh Jacobs, though, his Packers running back, he's been everything for them this season and has really helped lay a foundation for them offensively. So he is someone that I'm a little cautious of going into this week. This season, he's the third leading rusher in the league with 828 rushing yards. In the last 4 games, he has scored 4 touchdowns and has at least 90 yards from scrimmage. In the last 6 games, he's been super efficient, very effective on the ground. And like I said, he's been everything for them as of late. Last week against the Bears have a pretty good run defense. He had 76 rushing yards, a touchdown, and he also had 58 yards receiving. So he can catch out of the backfield as well. He's been very reliable for them. So I would expect Josh Jacobs to be a huge part of, their offensive game plan, especially with the 49ers hurting. I'm sure we'll get some throwing from Jordan Love as well, but much more in the complimentary sense. They also, last week against the Bears, mind you, they were coming off a bye week in that game, week 11. They didn't pass the ball a whole lot in that one. So I would expect that, again, they'll probably gonna, lean on Jacobs in this game, test out the 49ers run defense early, especially without Nick Bosa. What is that going to look like, right? I'd be very concerned about that. So I think we'll see a lot of Jacobs in this game, and depending on how the 49ers defend that, like, that'll tell us a lot. Let's take a look at the Packers defense. Few good pieces here for them. Rashawn Gary, their best pass rusher. And as I mentioned, you got Keyshawn Nixon on one side for the corners, Carrington Valentine on the other side. That's with Jair Alexander being out in this game. Xavier McKinney is someone I definitely want to talk about in this show because he's been one of their best defenders this year as well. So not so favorable. The obvious one, the fact that the 49ers don't have Brock Purdy. And in fact, I was going to have Brock Purdy as a not so favorable in this game if he did play. And I'll tell you why in a second. But first, let's talk about the fact that Brandon Allen is going to be playing in this game. I think most fans, if you ask them who they prefer between Brandon Allen and Joshua Dobbs, most fans, if not all of them, would say Joshua Dobbs. But for some reason, the 49ers can't get enough of Brandon Allen as their QB2. They love QB2, Brandon Allen, and yeah, this has been a thing since last offseason. This offseason, preseason, all of that, they've leaned on Brandon Allen. They see him as being the safer guy. He can do most of what I think Purdy does in the sense of like foundational things and understanding of the offense. The kind of stuff that Kyle Shanahan prefers out of his quarterback. So Kyle Shanahan, this 49ers offense, they don't really care about who has the higher ceiling. They just care if you do the foundational things right and the best of all, right? So that would be, in Kyle Shanahan's eyes, Brandon Allen. He's not very exciting. We've seen him in the preseason, and we've seen Allen and Joshua Dobbs both in the same preseason games. I don't think the 49ers scored in any drive that Brandon Allen led in the preseason. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if I recall correctly, I don't think they scored once with Brandon Allen on the field. So that tells you everything you need to know about what to expect on Sunday. And keep in mind, that was in the preseason against like second string, third string players. You're going to be playing some starters on Sunday. So I have to imagine, based on that, it could look very much the same, if not worse, for Brandon Allen on Sunday. He is 2 of 7 as a starter. Not 2 of 7, 2 and 7 as a starter in his NFL career. He hasn't started a whole lot. Last season for the 49ers, he didn't play any snaps. So it's been a long, long time since he last started a game, in the regular season. So this could be interesting. So yeah, I'm concerned, obviously, with Brock Purdy not playing this game. And here's where I give you the reason, right? So Packers defense has forced 19 turnovers this season. That is third in the league. In fact, they've already forced more turnovers through 10 games than they had all last season as a defense. So last season they had 18, I think, in 17 games. So this season they already have 19, and they're third in the NFL in turnovers. Xavier McKinney, as I mentioned, he's been one of their best defenders. He leads the team with 6 interceptions, something to look out for in this game. And again, even if Brock Purdy did play, I was ready to point these stats out because I think they're important. McKinney, with his 6 interceptions, is second in the league in picks. So 49ers have to take care of the football. Brandon Allen, if there's anything Brandon Allen does well, maybe it's that, because he just doesn't throw it that much. And if he does, it's a very low risk throw. We're going to see checkdowns all day on Sunday is my expectation. So I think I have a little more confidence in Brandon Allen possibly not throwing a pick because he's so risk adverse as a quarterback. But I think at the same time, you're going to see less chance taking. And in turn, you're going to see less of a score for the 49ers in this game. And yeah, it's I'm not excited about this. There isn't anything about Brandon Allen that excites me. At the very least, Joshua Dobbs does have that exciting factor and, makes it kind of fun to watch. So if your team is spiraling, you at least want to enjoy the ride, right? We can't do that with Brandon Allen, but we'll see if at some point in the game, the 49ers are in desperation mode and they're like, we need a score. Let's put Dobbs in there. I don't know. It just kind of feels like that kind of game because the 49ers needed to win this game badly. I just have next to no confidence in Brandon Allen doing that. It would be hilarious, though, just on a side note, it would be actually hilarious if Brandon Allen came out ripping it and throwing the passes that Brock Purdy has been so hesitant to make this season. It's one thing I mentioned about Purdy this year is that he's been a little hesitant, thinking a little bit more, and it's led to windows closing on him or he misses open windows. Yeah, it would just be funny and very much on brand for the 49ers quarterback experience if Brandon Allen did actually end up getting those throws and, leading a drive. But again, based on what I've seen from him so far in the preseason and all that, I just don't have a lot of confidence in that. So, all right, let's move on to some favorables for the 49ers. And I do have to preface this by saying that these favorables I had before Brock Purdy and the injury reports, before I knew Brock Purdy wasn't going to play, right? So the first one here is Christian McCaffrey. I felt good about Christian McCaffrey. I think I feel less good about it without Purdy playing because now the Packers could just put all of their focus on McCaffrey, and I'm sure they're going to load the box, and that'll hurt some of McCaffrey's opportunities to get going here. Really, the only thing that I had going for McCaffrey in this game is that he's had past success against the Packers, and I do think a lot of the inefficiencies we're seeing from McCaffrey is him getting back into the swing of things, like him missing holes in blocking lanes is a little uncharacteristic that I think, with additional reps, he'll eventually get back into that. But again, if the Packers are going to load the box this week, I feel less good about this, but maybe we do see this third game, McCaffrey being back, as the game that, McCaffrey does find those rushing lanes a little bit better. The run blocking last week was atrocious. It was so bad. And if they can just get back to being good in run blocking, that opens things up for McCaffrey. So not all hope is lost for him. But I am banking on him eventually looking like his old version. And I'm hoping that it's in this game. It has to be, right? Like, this is the game. They need McCaffrey to look like his old self. Last season against the Packers, he had 98 rush yards, 2 touchdowns. This is where also I do feel like there's some opportunity here against the Bears last week. Again, the Packers were coming off a bye week when they played the Bears last week, week 11. The Bears are 25th ranked run game in the NFL. The Bears had 179 yards rushing against the Packers last week. So their run defense was not very good. And so again, I think there's an opportunity for McCaffrey, though I do think, like I said, they are going to key in on him. But there's a chance, right? Oh, man. All right. Question from Corey. He says, conspiracy theory, you think Purdy is playing it a little bit so we can't see him against 2 good teams in the Packers and Bills? I don't see him as that kind of guy. I think he is a competitor and he definitely wants to play. I don't see him being the kind that would be shying away purposefully of a matchup like this. I think he thinks he gives the team the best chance to win, and he does. Out of the 3 quarterbacks, he absolutely does. So I think it probably pains him actually to not be able to play in this game. Corey, I can't tell if you're kidding or not. Come on. You throw out a lot of, theories out here and in comments. I never know. But yeah, so McCaffrey possibly a favorable for the 49ers. I'll just say that. Here's where I want to talk about the only unfavorable thing about Jordan Love in this season, right? What happened for the 49ers to win that playoff game last season against the Packers? Well, Jordan Love on what could have potentially been a game-winning drive instead threw an ill-timed interception that basically sealed the game for the 49ers. And so he does tend to throw interceptions. This season alone, he's already matched the number of interceptions he threw all of last season with 11 interceptions. So he has also thrown more interceptions this year. I know, we've spent time talking about how Purdy has thrown more interceptions. Yes, absolutely. Jordan Love has as well. So 11 picks in as many weeks. I guess 10 games because they had their bye week. But you know what I mean? Interception rate of 4.3%. That is 30th in the NFL. The only worst quarterbacks in interception rate have been Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. It's actually pretty crazy. I know Jordan Love has thrown some picks this year, but I didn't know it was this bad. So I say this because, look, I know how we're feeling about this game, right? The 49ers have next to no chance to win. But I'll just say this anyway. If there's even a sliver of hope, it's going to be on the back of 1, Christian McCaffrey that I mentioned, and 2, an opportunity like this, Jordan Love throwing a pick at some point in the game. And I do think he will. I think based on the statistics, based on the 49ers secondary, Lenore's been great. I do think Love throws at least 1 pick in this game. I do, even with the injuries. So if he does, the 49ers have to capitalize on that. I'm not talking about a freaking field goal. I'm talking about actually scoring 7 points, the touchdown and the extra point to get ahead. Little things like this is going to be the only things that give them the best shot at winning this game, the only shot possibly at winning this game, right? So this is something that I think they should be prepared for in the offense with Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen-led offense needs to capitalize on these opportunities. So I'll just say it like that. Ayo, we got Michael Gillum in the comments. He says 49ers will beat Packers. I like the confidence. I mean, it's a little sure, like we'll take it at this point. It will take some positivity. All right, here's my other favorable, George Kittle. And I had him on last week as a favorable. And I was so bummed that he didn't play because I really thought that George Kittle playing in that game against Seattle would have absolutely been the difference. And I don't say that often about a single player, but like Kittle is that kind of player that I do think he makes that big of an impact on this offense. I don't think it's any coincidence that the 49ers turned in one of their worst run blocking performances of the season without Kittle there. I really don't. So I think him being there would have made a difference, especially, when it comes to the scoring opportunities. We know he's been great in that area for the 49ers this year. In the last 5 games that he has played, obviously this doesn't count week 11. He had 36 targets, 28 catches. He needs more. He needs more targets and he needs more catches. I hope if Brandon Allen has been throwing anybody in practice this week, it's been Kittle. Obviously, I'm sure, like I said, we'll expect some Christian McCaffrey checkdowns all game, but, Kittle should be that next guy as well. 36 targets, 28 catches, 399 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns in the last 5 games that he has played. That's the kind of juice that this offense, this team needs. And last week they missed it. Packers rank 28th in DVOA against tight ends. They've allowed an average of 55 yards a game. And then they've also allowed a total of 3 touchdowns to tight ends this season. So not a lot of touchdowns to tight ends this year, but I think Kittle is one of those outliers that could have success in this game if he's thrown the ball to him. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, but I think Kittle's going to be a positive, of course, for the 49ers, as he often is. I am seeing some, talking about the running backs, like JME here says, rotate our 3 running backs. Now, I thought about this earlier. I was like, I think without Purdy, you're going to expect that it's going to be a very run-heavy game plan for the 49ers. Like, I really don't think I'm sure at some point they thought that Purdy was going to play this week. Like, I think early in the week, they still had some hope. So it wasn't until late in the week that they're like, shoot, we might not be able to play with him. So given that, I think you don't get to game plan as much knowing that Brandon Allen is your quarterback. I would have hoped, Kyle had a plan B early in the week, but realistically, I mean, I don't know how realistic that is. So I do think they're going to lean on the run game a lot. Luckily, you have Christian McCaffrey, but I do think too, you have to involve some of your other guys. Like, I really do hope they do, especially if this is going to be a run-heavy game. Like, you have to involve Jordan Mason too. You have to involve – I mean, you don't have to involve Garendo. He's been kind of poor in the pass pro department. But, like, I hope we see some of those other guys. At the very least, Jordan Mason. But we'll see. I mean, I think we've all been hoping for more of those guys being mixed in. And nobody's calling for McCaffrey to be like benched or anything. Like, who in their right mind would do that? We're just saying, like, I think Jordan Mason deserves a couple more carries, like a couple more snaps. Wouldn't hurt. So we'll see. We'll see if this is the game where we see more of that. But yeah, guys, I don't feel great about this game. I really don't, and I have to imagine, you guys don't as well. So the questions going forward for this 49ers team is, do you shut some people down? I mean, obviously, Nick Bosa is going to be out this week. Purdy's going to be out this week. Personally, I wouldn't even play Trent this week. Like, let's have him healthy for next week. If there's a better chance that Purdy plays next week, let's have Trent ready for that. And then let's have Bosa ready for that. If the 49ers lose this game against the Packers, which at this point it's looking likely based on all of the scenarios, right, that I'm laying out here. If that happens, there's going to be some tough decisions I think you have to make in favor of looking into next year. You got to start looking ahead at that point and how you want to set up your 2025. So I think for me, that would look like more snaps for the rookies, especially on offense. Give them those opportunities, those chances to learn on the fly, develop, all those things in favor of some vets. Like, that's what I would want to see. If the 49ers lose this game against the Packers, I want to see that development plan for some of those rookies. The vets have gotten their time. They've gotten their chances, right? Like, the rest of the season should be focused on that, right? But look, I guess I don't want to get too ahead of myself, right? But I have a feeling on Monday, Sunday as well, going forward, that's probably where we'll shift our focus. And then, maybe even some draft talk if you guys are into that as well. But like I said, I appreciate you guys, being on here. I know we're kind of all down in the dumps on how this season has gone, and certainly how it's gone from bad to worse in such a short amount of time. But I appreciate you guys being here with me on a Friday. Could have been anywhere, but I appreciate you guys being on. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Audio listeners, leave a rating, leave a review. I also want to apologize to the audio listeners because, I have been forgetting to upload my shows, at least a couple times this week. I forgot to upload my shows that same day. So I had to upload them the following day. So sorry about that. It's been busy, but appreciate all of you. Like I said, have a good Friday. Have a good rest of your weekend. The sky is falling for the 49ers, but that doesn't mean your life has to be terrible as well. Go touch grass. Go hang out with your families, all right? Do the things you love. There's more outside of this team to enjoy, so do that. But, come back for the post game on Sunday after the game. I'm sure that'll be fun. But for now, have a good rest of your Friday, folks. Peace.